Notification came on a Tuesday. I remember because I was in the middle of a budget review, staring at a spreadsheet that hadn't been touched since Friday, and my phone lit up face down on my desk. I ignored it. I always ignore it during work hours. That was one of the first habits I built when I moved. Boundaries. Actual ones. Not the kind you announce to people who don't listen, but the kind you quietly enforce for yourself. Alone, in a city where nobody knows your last name. I finished the report. I made coffee. I sat by the window of my apartment and watched the rain come in sideways off the harbor, the way it does here in late October, and then I picked up my phone. 17 missed calls, 12 from my mom, 3 from my aunt, 2 from a number I didn't recognize, and 1 text from my mom sent at 6:42 in the morning. Call me. Your brother is getting married and we need to talk about your contribution. This is family. I read it 3 times. Then I set the phone face down again and finished my coffee. My name is Lily. I'm 31 years old. I work in financial compliance for a mid-sized logistics company, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, which is exactly 2,400 miles from the house I grew up in outside of Memphis, Tennessee. My family does not know I live in Portland. They think I'm still in Chicago, where I moved after college. I moved to Portland 14 months ago. I signed a new lease, updated my address with my employer, transferred my car registration, and told exactly 2 people, my best friend Joanna and my therapist, Dr. Carr Kessler, who has been helping me understand for 3 years now why keeping that distance wasn't abandonment. It was survival. I know how that sounds, I know. But let me tell you what my family is like before you decide what kind of person I am. I am the middle child. My brother Theo is 4 years older than me. My sister Becca is 6 years younger. In our family, Theo was the golden one, the football player, the one my dad drove 6 hours round trip to watch at away games, the one who got a car for his 16th birthday and a down payment on a condo at 26. Becca was the baby. Sweet, soft, required protection. I was neither of those things. I was the one who got straight A's and heard, "That's expected." I was the one who needed braces and was told to wait until I could pay for them myself. I was the one who applied to 14 colleges, got into 3 good ones, and sat at the dinner table while my dad asked Theo what he thought about me going out of state, as if Theo's opinion was the one that mattered. I paid for college myself. Scholarships, 2 part-time jobs. One summer where I ate rice and canned beans for 6 weeks straight because I miscalculated my budget and was too proud to ask for help. I graduated with a 3.8 GPA and $4,200 in debt, which I paid off in 18 months. My parents came to my graduation. They left after the ceremony because Theo had a softball tournament that afternoon. That was 9 years ago. I stopped expecting things to be fair around that time. What I didn't stop for a long time was hoping. When I moved to Chicago at 22, I called home every Sunday. For about 2 years, I did that. The calls got shorter and shorter, not because I didn't try, but because there was only so many times I could describe my life to people who responded with questions about Theo. How was work? Good, actually, I got promoted. That's nice. Hey, did you hear Theo is thinking about expanding the restaurant? Yes, I heard. I was the one who helped him write his business plan. Did they know that? No. He never told them. And I didn't either because I'd learned that anything I did for Theo became just another thing Theo had done. By the time I was 25, the Sunday calls were monthly. By 27, they were holidays and birthdays. Then just birthdays. When I moved to Portland, I made a decision I had been circling for years. I didn't cut contact completely. I didn't send a letter or make a speech. I just stopped filling the space. If they called, I'd answer. If they didn't, I didn't chase. I told myself I'd see how long it took them to notice. 14 months. It took them 14 months. And the reason they noticed wasn't that they missed me. It wasn't that my mom was sorting through old photos and realized she didn't know what her daughter's apartment looked like. It wasn't that my dad thought about me on a random Wednesday and felt a pull in his chest. It was Theo's wedding. Theo, 35, was marrying a woman named Petra. Lovely, I'm sure. I'd never met her. And apparently, the wedding budget had grown beyond what my parents had planned for, and so my mom had made a list. I found this out later. She'd actually made a spreadsheet. I almost respected it, The spreadsheet had family members on it, estimated income levels based on whatever she gathered from Facebook and LinkedIn, and a suggested contribution column. My suggested contribution was $18,000. $18,000 for a wedding I had not been invited to. I need to pause here because I want to be clear about that last part. I wasn't on the guest list. I know because when I finally called my mom back, 3 days after that first text, after I'd had time to breathe and think and talk to Dr. Kessler, I asked her directly, "Is my name on the invitation list?" There was a pause. The kind of pause that tells you everything. "It's a small ceremony," she said. "Petra's family is large and the venue has a limit. But you'd be contributing to your brother's happiness, Lily. That's what family does." I'm not sure I said anything for a moment. I was standing in my kitchen, looking out at the gray Portland sky, and I had this strange, floating feeling, not anger exactly, more like something clicking into place, like the last piece of a puzzle you've been staring at for years finally settling where it belonged. "Mom," I said, "how long ago did I move out of my Chicago apartment?" Another pause. Longer this time. "What?" "My Chicago place. I moved. I have a different address now. Do you know what it is?" Silence. "I've been in a different state for over a year," I said. "You didn't notice." "Lily, I'm not saying it to hurt you. I'm saying it because I think you should understand what you're asking. You're calling me for $18,000 for a wedding I'm not invited to, and you don't know where I live." She pivoted immediately. That's one of my mom's skills. The ability to sidestep anything that reflects poorly on her and reframe it as something you did. "You could have told us you moved. You didn't have to be secretive about it. That's hurtful to the family, Lily. Your father is upset. Dad is upset that I moved. He's upset that you kept it from us." I looked out the window. There was a woman walking a golden retriever down the sidewalk below, and the dog kept stopping to sniff at a pile of wet leaves, and she kept gently tugging the leash and waiting. Just waiting. "I have to go," I said. "I'll think about it." I wasn't going to think about it, but I needed to get off the phone before I said something I couldn't unsay. I called Joanna that night. She's known my family since we were 12 years old, long enough that she doesn't need context, she just needs the update. 18,000, she said. 18. For a wedding you're not going to. Correct. There was a long pause, and then she said, "What is wrong with these people?" And it wasn't really a question. Here's the thing about having a family like mine. After a while, you stop being shocked. The requests don't surprise you anymore. What surprises you is yourself, the way some tiny, persistent part of you still hopes each time that they'll be different. That this call will be the one where your mom asks how you're doing and actually waits for the answer. That your dad will say your name with warmth in it. That part of me still showed up, even after 14 months of silence, even answering that call. It showed up like a habit you can't quite break, a reflex in your chest before your brain catches up. It took 3 more calls over the next 2 weeks to knock it back down. My aunt called first. She's my mom's older sister, a woman I have always found exhausting, not because she's cruel exactly, but because she delivers manipulation with the energy of someone doing you a favor. She opened with, "I hear there's been some tension," which is family speak for "your mom called me to recruit me." She told me that Theo had been through a hard few years, that this wedding was important to the whole family, that at my income level, which she mentioned twice, at your income level, $18,000 was really not that much, was it? I asked her what she was contributing. She said that wasn't relevant. I told her I hoped she had a nice evening. Then Theo called. I'll give him this. He at least had the self-awareness to sound slightly uncomfortable. He said he knew Mom had reached out, and he wanted me to know that he personally hadn't asked for money from me, that this was Mom's thing, and he was sorry if it felt like pressure. Felt like, I said. Is, he corrected himself. I'm sorry if it is pressure. I almost softened. I did. I could hear in his voice something almost genuine. And I thought for a second about the time we were kids, and he let me sleep in his room during a thunderstorm, how he didn't tease me about it once, and how that small kindness had been enough to carry the weight of a lot of years. Theo, I said, did you know I don't live in Chicago anymore? A pause. Mom mentioned something about that. She mentioned it like it was my fault for keeping a secret. But here's the thing, nobody called to check in. Nobody called to say, hey, we were in Chicago, want to grab dinner? Nobody asked for my address. I just wasn't there, and nobody noticed for 14 months. Does that seem okay to you? He was quiet. I hope your wedding is beautiful, I said. I genuinely do. But I can't give $18,000 to something I wasn't invited to. I hope you understand. He said he did. Whether he actually did, I don't know. I don't think I'll find out anytime soon. The last call was my mom, and it was the one I had been bracing for. She called on a Sunday evening, which felt deliberate. The old Sunday call slot, like she was invoking some past ritual. I answered because I decided I was going to end this cleanly. No more waiting, no more, I'll think about it. I wanted it done. She started reasonably. She said she understood I was upset. She said she knew she should have reached out more. She was working her way up to something, I could tell. My mom always builds like that. Concessions first, then the turn. The turn came about 4 minutes in. Your brother deserves to have his whole family support him on this day. And I have to say, Lily, the way you've been handling this, pulling away, moving without telling us, refusing to contribute, it's been embarrassing. What am I supposed to tell people? Tell them what you want, I said. You've been doing that my whole life. Excuse me. Mom, I paid for my own college. I paid for my own braces eventually. I paid for my own apartment, my own moves, my own everything. Every single time. Not because you couldn't help, but because it never occurred to anyone to offer. And that's fine. I made my peace with it. I'm not calling to relitigate all of that. I'm saying that I have nothing left to give to a family that doesn't know where I live. That is so unfair. I'm not invited to the wedding. Silence. I'm not on the guest list. You told me yourself it's a small ceremony. I'm being asked to give $18,000 to an event I will not attend by people who didn't notice I'd moved to a different state for over a year. And when I don't immediately agree, suddenly it's about family loyalty and what you'll tell people. My mom's voice went cold. It does that when she can't control the direction of a conversation. It doesn't go loud, it goes flat. Fine, she said. Then I think you should know that your father and I have been reconsidering a lot of things. The property on Clearwater, what we've set aside, we'll be handling that differently now. She meant the inheritance. The small piece of land my grandparents left that my dad had always vaguely implied would stay in the family. I took a breath. I had thought about this moment before, actually. Talked it through with Dr. Kessler, who had asked me once, what would it feel like to let go of something you were promised but never certain you'd receive? I hadn't had a good answer then. I had one now. Okay, I said. Okay. I mean it. That's okay. If that's what you need to do, do it. I'm not going to give you $18,000 to get back something that was never guaranteed to begin with. I'm not going to make myself smaller to stay in the will of people who don't know my zip code. You can leave it all to Theo. I genuinely don't care. She didn't have a response to that. There was silence on the line. Real silence. The kind that isn't loaded or calculating. Just empty. Like she'd expected a different wall and walked into open air. I have to go, I said. Take care of yourself, Mom. And I hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a long time after that. The rain had come back. Quieter now. Just a soft sound against the window glass. I made tea. I didn't drink. I sat on the couch and looked at the walls of my apartment. The print I'd found at a street fair the first week I moved here. The shelf I'd built myself from a YouTube tutorial that took 3 hours and turned out slightly crooked, but still holds all my books. The succulent on the windowsill that I've managed not to kill for 8 months. I thought about the version of me who still would have written that check. Not out of love. Out of fear. Fear of being cut off. Of being the difficult one. Of losing some future thing that maybe would finally prove they'd valued me all along. I thought about how long I'd carried that fear around like luggage. How heavy it was. How I'd gotten so used to the weight that I didn't notice when it was hurting my back. There's a specific grief that comes with finally accepting that your family is not going to become the family you needed. It's not dramatic. It doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in small waves when you see someone's parents cheer in the stands and feel something squeeze in your chest, when a friend mentions that her mom called just to say she was thinking of her, when you realize you've built an entire life and the people who were supposed to be your foundation don't know the name of your street. I grieved that. Not on the phone with my mom, not in any conversation with Theo, but alone, in the quiet of this apartment, in the sessions with Doctor. Kessler, in the long walks I take along the waterfront when I need to think. I grieved it properly, which meant I didn't have to carry it anymore. Theo got married in March. I know, because Joanna saw photos on Facebook. Apparently, the no social media boundary I'd put in place didn't fully insulate me from secondhand updates. She described it briefly: outdoor venue, a lot of white flowers, Theo in a navy suit. It sounded nice. My mom sent one text a week before the wedding. Just, "I hope you change your mind." I didn't respond. I don't think she expected me to at that point. I think it was more like closing a door from her side, a way of making sure the record showed she'd tried. My mom has always been concerned with the record. My dad never called at all. That one still lives somewhere in me, somewhere quiet. But it doesn't surprise me, and it doesn't change anything. A few months later, I got a birthday card in the mail. My actual current address, which meant someone had looked it up, or asked around, or finally paid enough attention to find it. The card was from my aunt, which surprised me. Inside, she'd just written, "Thinking of you." Nothing else. I'd put it on the shelf next to the crooked bookcase. I don't know what that means, if it means anything. Maybe she was performing reconciliation. Maybe she genuinely felt something. I've stopped trying to read every gesture from that family for hidden motive. That's an exhausting way to live, and I did it for too long. What I know is this: I am 31 years old. I have a job I'm proud of, an apartment I built into a home piece by piece, a best friend who picks up the phone at 10 p.m. when I need to talk, and a therapist who asks good questions. I have the waterfront and the rain and the bookcase that leans a little to the left. I did not write a check for $18,000. I did not shrink myself to fit into the space they decided I should occupy. And I did not go back. There's something I've been turning over for a while now, something Dr. Tempsting, Kessler helped me find the words for, the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. People use them like they mean the same thing, but they don't. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself, quietly, over time. It's setting down the story of what they did to you long enough to stop letting it run your life. It's not saying it was okay. It's not opening the door back up. Reconciliation is a two-person project. It requires the other person to show up, to see what happened, to change. And you can't want it more than they do. You just can't. I've done my part. I'm still doing my part. What they do with theirs is not mine to carry. I still have my mom's number. I haven't blocked it. If she calls and something is genuinely wrong, I'll answer. If my dad ever wants to have a real conversation, I'll be here. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm not staging a dramatic exit or waiting for an apology that will fix everything. I'm just living my life in my apartment, in my city, in the quiet and the rain. And some days, most days now, that is exactly enough. I've thought a lot about what it actually costs to stay in a situation that was never going to change. Not the $18,000 my mom put in a spreadsheet with my name next to it. The other kind of cost, the quiet compounding kind. The version of me that kept showing up to Sunday calls hoping this one would be different. The energy spent reading tone into texts, bracing for the next ask, translating silence into maybe they're just busy. That cost doesn't show up anywhere. Nobody sees you paying it, but you pay it every single day. What I understand now that I didn't understand at 22 is that the way people treat you is information. It's not a mystery to decode or a wound to explain away. It's just information, and you can choose what to do with it. My family gave me very consistent information for a very long time. They told me through 1,000 small and not so small choices exactly where I ranked. I kept arguing with the data. That was on me. There's something that happens when you finally stop arguing. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels quiet. The weekend, after I hung up on my mom, I went for a long walk along the waterfront and I kept waiting to feel something dramatic. Grief, rage, relief. And mostly I just felt the cold air and the sound of the water, which was, I realized later, exactly what peace feels like when you've never had much of it. Unremarkable. Steady. Just there. Theo got handed things his whole life, and I watched it happen, and for a long time I made the mistake of thinking that was a story about me, about my worth, about what I deserved. It wasn't. It was a story about my parents' limitations, and those were never mine to fix or to carry. He got the car. He got the condo help. He got the wedding fund. And I got something that took longer to name but turned out to matter more. I learned to figure things out on my own. I learned that I could. That is not nothing. That is, actually, everything. The $18,000 they asked for was never really about money. It was a test of whether I still believed that belonging in this family required payment, financial, emotional, psychological. Whether I'd buy my way back into a table that had never really had a seat for me. The answer was no. Not out of bitterness. Out of something clearer than that. Here's what I know about how we end up where we are, the choices we make about what we accept, what we tolerate, what we quietly absorb as normal. Those choices compound. They build the life we're living whether we're paying attention or not. I spent years accepting less than I deserved from the people who were supposed to be my foundation. And then, slowly, I stopped. I built different habits. I built a different life, and the life I have now, the apartment, the waterfront, the friend who picks up at 10 p.m., the bookcase that leans a little to the left, I built that by deciding, over and over again, to stop shrinking. That's not a dramatic story. There's no single moment that changed everything. It was just a long series of small, quiet choices in the direction of my own life. And every single one of them was worth it.